Over the course of my career as a documentary filmmaker, there's been one thing that's come with me on every single job, no matter what my role was. I brought it when I was a camera assistant, I brought it when I was running a B-cam, and I still bring it with me today when I'm a series DP. It's not a camera because I've gone through 4 different systems since I started. It's also not a fancy light because there are a lot of jobs where I don't bring any lighting gear at all. And it is definitely not a drone because those things are updated and become obsolete faster than any other piece of gear I know of. Actually, the piece of kit I bring with me most often doesn't have any electronic parts at all and costs less than a single memory card for my Sony FX6. It's this, the tool bag I put together just after my first job as an AC and have carried around the world with me since. It's not the most glamorous thing in my bag, but every documentary filmmaker out there should have one of these, and in this video, I'm going to go into what I have in mine and what the essential items are you need to make a future-proof toolkit of your own. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Luke Forsyth, documentary cinematographer and filmmaker. And on this channel, I teach the skills I've learned over 10 years of working as a documentary filmmaker and photographer. On one of the very first camera assistant jobs I ever got on a real documentary production, I'll never forget the look of rage on the DP's face when he asked me to build up the camera rig in the morning and I told him that I didn't have any tools. He'd been in the business for over 20 years and was used to working with professionals. And to be honest, I might have misrepresented my skill set a little bit to get the job in the first place. Luckily, he didn't throw me off the set. Though I think he thought about it, and if he had a better option, he might have. Instead, he lent me his own tools and told me to get my act together ASAP. I made a list of all the stuff he had, and then I went home that night and ordered exactly the same things as he had. Over the years, I've worked with other DPs and have picked up a few more useful items along the way, but the basics are pretty much unchanged since that day. So what do you need for a toolkit that will cover you in almost any situation? Well, obviously, the first thing you need is something to carry it all in. It's all well and good to have a bunch of tools, but if they aren't in one place, you're never going to find what you're looking for when there's an emergency. When the base plate falls off a tripod in the middle of an important interview, the last thing you want to do is be rooting through all of your bags frantically while a pissed off director watches. I went with this one from Cinebags. I think it's called the CBAC pouch or CB3, something like that. I think it was just over 40 bucks. There's a bunch of other brands with their own version of this, like Setware and Portabrace and a bunch of other no-name alternatives. You'd probably be fine with any of them. I went with this one because I'd used some Cinebag stuff before and liked it, but mostly because it was the top search result on B&H Photo when I searched for AC pouch. I'm pretty sure it still is. Whatever you pick, I'd say just make sure it has good Velcro and stays closed, because the cheap ones will pop open in your bag and after a while your stuff will scatter everywhere. I'd also get one with a belt loop so you can choose whether you want to wear it on your hip or just have it in a bag. I've been pretty happy with this one and I guess I'd recommend it, but you'd be fine with anything really. What matters most is what's inside. So the first and most important thing is one of these, a multi-tool. Every filmmaker needs one of these, but especially filmmakers that are interested in documentaries. They can be used for so many things that a lot of people on big sets just carry one on their hip all the time. I use a Leatherman Wave because it comes with a bunch of screwdriver attachments. There are other companies who make multi-tools, but Leatherman is so popular that a lot of the time people will just ask you for a Leatherman rather than a multi-tool. Kind of like how people ask for Kleenex instead of tissue. You can't go wrong with one of these and it's incredibly hard to break. I'm pretty sure they have a 25-year warranty or something insane like that. They're about $100, which I know isn't super cheap, but it is the most expensive thing in this pouch, and as long as you don't use it, you'll have it for years. And while we're talking about losing them, pro tip here, don't forget these things in your carry-on luggage before you go to the airport, because I have lost more than one of these to airport security and it sucks every single time. All right, moving down the list to the next thing I use the most would probably be these things, a heavy-duty set of Allen keys. A surprising number of things on cameras use hex bolts, and most multi-tools won't cover you. You can get a little attachment for some Leathermans, but they're small and finicky, and you're really better off just having a dedicated set of Allen keys. You can get these for as little as a couple dollars on Amazon, though I'd say definitely get a folding set like this one rather than the loose ones because they're much easier to keep track of. You can get a lot more leverage with the handle on really tight bolts. I'd say get a set of around 8 or 10 different sizes, and that would cover you for pretty much everything. The next thing in here is a rocket blower that I've had since my days as a photojournalist. Dust and sand are the enemy of cameras, and when you're shooting docs like I do, your cameras get dirty. A blower will help you deal with it and get small stuff off your camera and lenses without touching them. It's also way less spitty, I guess is the word, than blowing on it with your mouth, and no one really wants spit on their lens anyways. I think the company who makes these, Giotto's, I think it's called, is the original patent holder, and they charge between 10 and 20 bucks for theirs. You can probably go with a knockoff brand and probably not notice much of a difference at all. I push the nozzle of this back inside so it's easier to carry, and it's pretty easy to pull back out when you need to use it. I also carry a toothbrush and paintbrushes as well. Sometimes really thick dirt or dust won't come off with the rocket blower alone, and when that happens, these guys come in really handy. You can get into all the little cracks and holes on your camera, and I use these all the time. Fun tip, the toothbrush can also get the dirt out of those tiny little holes on the bottom of your iPhone where the speakers are, so it's useful outside of filmmaking too. I also keep a bottle of cleaning spray and a pack of lens tissues in here. These are for cleaning lenses after your AC or just a curious little kid touches the front of your lens by accident, and there's really no better way to get smudges off glass. I've definitely used my t-shirt in a pinch, but since I don't use UV filters on my lenses, this can be a bit dangerous. Your shirt can also leave particles behind as well, and those microfiber cloth things get so wet and dirty over the course of a day, they're not much use. These little tearaway sheets don't leave anything behind, and there's so many of them in a pack, you don't really need to worry about losing them. I have some from Roscoe here, but there are lots of other companies who make them, and I think a pack of 100 is about $5. Here's another hot tip. They're also pretty much the same thing as the paper people use on their faces for oily skin, and they work really well to get the shine off someone's face before an interview. Before we start, I'll often give one to an interview subject and tell them to wipe down their nose and cheeks, and it'll make them look way less shiny under bright lights. I actually did this to myself before I started filming this video, so let me know in the comments how I look. What else do I have in here? Oh, in this back pocket here, I keep bongo ties. If you've never seen these things before, bongo ties are insanely useful. They are basically just industrial plastic bands with this little thing on the end that looks like a bongo drum, kind of. You can use them basically to attach anything to anything. And in my entire career, I've probably only seen 2 break. You can get a pack of these for about 10 bucks. And I actually found them so useful, I made an entire YouTube short about different ways you can use bongo ties. Just pick up a pack of them, keep them in your bag, and believe me, you'll use them. Up at the front here, I have a bunch of pens and markers. Normal pens, dry erase markers for whenever I come up against a slate, and Sharpies. Probably don't have to explain what a Sharpie is, but they are super useful in filmmaking. I use them a lot to label memory cards before handing them to an AC or an editor, or for labeling pretty much anything. Oh, another pro tip here, wrap some gaffer tape around the end of the Sharpie and you'll always have some on hand if you need it in a pinch. I'm on a roll with these tips today. If you're working as a camera assistant instead of as a DP, you could also hang some rolls of tape from this loop for easy access. When I'd AC, I used to try and have a roll of black gaff, a roll of white gaff, and a roll of paper tape for sticking on cards or cameras, or anything you don't want to get glue on. For some reason, people like to think that gaff tape is non-damaging. That's not true at all. It will rip the paint off someone's wall and leave sticky residue on all your gear if it gets warm. So for delicate things, go with paper tape or masking tape all the way. Lastly, right at the bottom here, I have this cheap keychain flashlight in case you need to work in the dark, and attached to it is a tripod plate just as an emergency redundancy, because a shaky tripod plate is never a good thing. I think that's pretty much it. Over the years, this kit hasn't changed very much, and with these things, I can sort out pretty much any situation from field repairs to media management. There's no tech in here to go out of date, and once you get yourself a kit that works, you're gonna be able to use it for a long time. So that's my take on the Ultimate Filmmaker's Tool Pouch. I'm curious if anyone has anything in theirs that I've never thought of, and if you do, let me know what it is in the comments so I can add it to mine. And if you like that video, you might like this one about what I think is the Ultimate Filmmaker's backpack, so you can put the tool pouch inside of something when you're shooting. See ya.